Where do I start? Let's get some buzzwords out of the way because I'm not a fan of jargon, but I just wanted to kind of like name a few because we're gonna drop them probably as we go through this. And we've said some already. Brand identity is the one. Brand identity is essentially it's your logo, it's the colors, it's the fonts, it's the things visually that you use to represent your brand. And Pete is a brand identity expert.
That's where I live, but it's in the name. It's what people it's identity. So what are people using to identify your brand? Brand is more than visual, but the visuals are what people are actually seeing with their eyes. People can't see integrity. They can see it acted out, but the actual integrity in and of itself is invisible until someone acts with integrity, right? Trustworthiness. Well, you can't see trustworthiness. It's not a real thing until someone acts trustworthy.
Sure.
And so in the same way, brand identity is the vehicle that, that people respond to when they see it. So it's logo, it's color, it's typography, it's all those things working together to build trust. Next one.
Another way. Next. Another one is brand positioning.
I think that's one that gets thrown around that people think or don't always understand. And I know for a long time I was like, I didn't even know what positioning was. And now I feel like I have obviously a good understanding of it, but we should explain it.
I know from my marketing degree that the 4 P's of marketing, one of them is positioning. Beautiful. And anyways, positioning is this idea of where you fit in the marketplace. So we talked about it a little bit earlier when we used 3 examples of roofers of kind of like your cheap, your value, and your premium. It's good, better, best, or, there's a lot of different ways to look at it. But positioning is going, where do we fit in this this marketplace? And price is another one of the P's that also comes into that. So it's positioning not only where we are in value, but who are our people. There are a lot of different athletic companies out there. There's kind of your general athletic companies like your Nike, Adidas, all this stuff. But then you've got like Patagonia, which is like a brand built for the outdoors type. So they're a lot more uniquely positioned. Right. And for most brands, it's very hard to be everything to everybody. The big brands live there, but Nike started as running shoes. Their founder was a track runner, and so they started there, and over time built up a following and became the everything brand. It's very rare, a local-ish company out of Baltimore. Under Armour started when I was in like high school, or maybe a little bit before that, but I became aware of them in high school, and they started because they created all this compression, like undershirts and stuff that like really changed the game of your base layers for sports. Like I remember just wearing these soccer jerseys when I was in high school that were like these like, they might have just been pure plastic to refer to what you were talking about earlier with your wool company. But like, I remember them like when you would sweat, like it didn't like wick at all. It would just like suck to your body. like this. It was terrible. Yeah, it was very unflattering. But we discovered Under Armour, and we'd all wear that under the jersey somewhere in high school, and it became a lot better. So that's brand positioning. Yeah. The one that I nerd out over, your brand identity, I'm brand messaging. That's the one that I get super.
We need to find another person who like gets crazy over brand positioning, and then we just have like the triune.
Well,
the trinity of brand.
There's so many other buzzwords. Yeah. I think when you think about your brand in terms of the message and the identity, you've got a pretty broad coverage of your brand right there.
Yeah. And a lot of the times through those things, positioning comes out of that too. So, I think you need to know messaging is really, and you'll talk about this, but it's what you're communicating, right? In its simplest form. Brand identity is what you look like.
Right.
And those two things can create where you're going to end up being positioned in the marketplace. Whereas you can position yourself a certain way, have the right messaging, but people don't know what to look for, right?
Yeah.
Like, so not to make hierarchy out of them, like not to say one is more important than the other, but in some ways with one and, with identity and messaging taking place, you can figure out
It
positioning.
depends on the company and the industry that you're in, things like that. But your brand message is the words you use to describe your products and services. And the unavoidable fact is that people don't buy from you until they read or hear words, period.
Yeah.
Whether that is from somebody else saying, hey, I use these people and they're great. That's hearing words. And one of the things we talk about with brand messaging is giving your customers words to use to describe you, that setting the expectation of, hey, we're going to put a roof on your house and there's no mess. There's a local company here that coined the term new roof, no mess. I think it's amazing.
Yeah.
They actually make the equipment that roofers use to make sure that they don't make much of a mess and then help clean up at the end. So like no new roof, no mess. That is
So memorable.
But if you give your customers the words and then the experience to tell their friends, to go, hey, they put a roof on my house. I could not find a single shred of evidence that they were there the next day. That is a message that they received from you, bought into, had the experience, and then shared with somebody else. So people don't buy until they hear or read words, just period.
Yeah.
So that's why I think brand messaging is so important. You can even say a logo has words in it. So,
Right. And then part of the story brand stuff within messaging, because that fits within messaging.
Yep. Story brand is a messaging framework.
Yeah. So that is essentially then creating a narrative, right? Because you can say something like new roof, no mess.
Yeah.
Super memorable, great phrase. But you can also take that then and create a story around it, right? So like something, you were in the house with your family having a great time, you noticed a leak. You reached out to this person, and then you create this this problem. You make it your client the hero, or the company the hero.
Yeah. Or even you remember the last time your last home also needed a new roof.
Yeah.
And you remember the poor experience that you had with the roofing company that drove their trucks directly into your yard.
Yeah.
And they, left a bunch of nails and material in the yard that you didn't see the next day, but discovered it for months and years later. Right. You'd be walking through your yard and you'd step on something, or.
And that's, to me, the story aspect of it, the narrative aspect of using that new roof, no mess, as the example. That all like starts to become critical when you're creating copy and content for like deliverables. So your website, your like a business card, a pamphlet, like when people are seeing your brand in the real world, in the wild, what are on those things? And that's where those stories actually resonate with people. Because your website. I mean, we do websites.
Absolutely.
We do websites. So that's kind of how our minds work. And I just think when it comes to that narrative aspect, that's website, that's where it lives. That's where the storytelling, you can do so much good storytelling there to win clients and customers.
Yeah. And that's what I love about StoryBrand, having been certified for 5 years and helped over 100 companies literally go through the StoryBrand framework. I've seen firsthand the light bulbs that occur when people think about their business in terms of a story, think about their message in terms of a story. And the caveat, the big pivot in thinking with StoryBrand is that this story is a hero's journey, but the hero is your customer.
Right.
So many companies, they position themselves as a hero. They say, we'll come save you. But people they're not looking for a savior. They're looking for a guide. They're looking for somebody that's going to help them win the day.
Right.
They're not looking for you to win the day or save the day. They're looking for somebody to help them win the day.
Yeah.
They don't want a new roof. They want their house to be safe and more beautiful.
Right. Right.
And they want to be the person who made the great decision to hire you because you're good at what you do. And then the neighbor comes over and goes, man, new roof looks great. Who'd you hire?
Yeah.
That is, you know.
And then in that moment, they feel like the hero. They feel like the one who made the great choice. Right. And you were the guide along the way.
Yeah. So that's what brand messaging is. Just some others, you know, there's brand perception, brand promise, brand experience. We don't talk about those things because it's not really in our it's not that it's not in our wheelhouse, but perception is more that equation of expectations versus reality. Yeah. You know, that's how I would explain that. Promise is, what's your brand promise? We do get into that a little bit with our messaging because it's often good to offer some sort of guarantee or promise that helps people buy in a little bit more to what you're offering. Because if you're making claims, then back it up with some sort of guarantee or promise. Same with brand experience. That not something that we get into a whole lot. I think when I think of brand experience, the thing I think of is like pop-up shops, you know, like this idea that you can create an experience, you know, like South by Southwest has this, you know, there's these awesome brand experiences, but you can do the same thing in your local business by how you answer the phone. Right. By the form that they fill out on your website. Is that something that you respond to immediately? Or is that something that stays in the inbox for several days or weeks before there's ever an attempt at a callback? If you enjoyed this Brand Nerd podcast clip, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. In the meantime, here are additional videos you might find illuminating.